Hello, my name is Clayton, and welcome to another episode of the Watch Dog podcast. I'm a professional dog runner and watch enthusiast talking to his pals about dogs and watches. How is everybody doing? Thank you so much for listening. You know I appreciate it. Well, this is my latest effort to bring you regular Watchdog podcast content. I'm going to give it one more shot. And if I can't keep up with a regular routine, that just might be it. Might be the end of the podcast. So here's the plan going forward. As you may or may not know, I co-host a show on YouTube with the great Bobby Legs called Watch Soup. It's a show where we pick our favorite watch videos from the week and discuss them. It's live, so we talk about them with the live studio audience, if you will. It's a riff on the old show from the 90s. It may still be on, who knows, Talk Soup, where they picked segments from daytime talk shows and went over them. It's a riff on that. Bobby created it years ago. Sanjay, our good friend Engineer Wannabe, was his co-host back then and then took it over for a while. And now with Sanjay having a very busy life, it's Bobby and I, and we hope Sanjay joins us again. But anyway, we do that most Sunday nights. It's been kind of hit or miss this summer, and then it's been Monday nights, but for the most part, Sunday nights. And I'm going to turn that into a podcast on Tuesday, and then hopefully release new Watchdog podcasts every Friday. So I'm hoping going forward that we will have Watch Soup podcast on Tuesday, Watch Dog podcast on Friday. They'll all be on this feed. We tried kind of making Watch Soup its own separate podcast. I have not uploaded any of our shows to that in a very long time. So here's hoping that, you'll get regular content again. I have so many ideas brewing and I just never get around to recording them. And I'm kind of sick of it. I want to get this stuff out there. So the format of the Watchdog podcast going forward, I think, will be probably quick hitter episodes, 20 to 30 minutes, just sort of me ranting and raving about what's on my mind in regards to watches and the watch hobby. And we'll go from there. May get back to having guests again, but I know in order for me to fit this into my schedule and keep it going on a regular basis, that's probably the format it needs to be right now. Quicker solo episodes. I'll try to make them as fun and interesting and engaging as possible. I'll also invite you to send me messages on Instagram, give me show ideas, feedback, all that stuff. It's going to be great fun, and I can't wait to get started. So speaking of getting started, why don't we? You're not going to get this episode on a Friday, but consider it a bonus. I owe you that much. I haven't done a podcast in several months. I think maybe one in the last year. So I owe you that. I owe you more content, damn it. And you're going to get it. So shocker, I've been thinking a lot about my watch collection recently. If you're anything like me, and I think you are, it dominates your thoughts, right? Dominates my life. And I've just resigned myself to the fact now that I am a watch addict. I love this hobby. I love watches. I love the community. I think about it a lot. It used to be something I ran away from, but now I just embrace it. But I think my relationship with how much money I spend on the hobby is changing. And something happened within the last week, actually, that really made this hit home for me. So in May, I bought the new Breitling Aerospace Orbiter 3. Beautiful orange dial. They created a new movement. The Aerospace had been out of their lineup for a little while, I think. And it's back now, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Orbiter balloon and its voyage around the world. And I think that voyage was sponsored by Breitling. And this was a really cool, I don't know if it was a limited edition, special edition. A little piece of the balloon was put in the case back, clear sapphire case back, of each of these Orbiter 3 aerospace watches, which is really cool. I guess they'll make them until they run out of balloon. Big balloon, small little pieces. They can probably make them for a while. I saw this, I think it was initially released in April, I want to say, March, April of this year. And oh boy, I fell in love. I'm a high accuracy quartz geek. I'm an Digi geek, so this was right up my street. I always wanted a Breitling Aerospace. Was a little afraid of the size, but they're titanium, so you can kind of get away with it. So I inquired with my AD almost right away, and it took them a while to get it. I did not get mine until the end of May. Leading up to that, I was starting to see some issues pop up on Breitling Facebook groups. It's a brand new movement. So a lot of times automatic and quartz, it turns out, there's going to be some bumps in the road. Maybe you want them to figure out the bugs and get the second edition of a watch with a brand new movement. People were having issues with the minute hand wobbling, bottom pushers. It's an Digi watch. There's two pushers. Sometimes the bottom pusher wasn't working. The hands were drifting. I ignored all of those issues. I thought, that's just a select few. That won't be the issue on mine. So I get mine finally in May. And this is not an inexpensive watch. These are about $5,000 US. I think $4,900. So not inexpensive. And I get mine. It's not a local authorized dealer that I have a relationship with. It's a little bit away, a few states away. So she sent it to me. I got it. And as I'm setting it, I immediately notice issues. My heart sank a little bit. The bottom pusher just would work maybe once every 5 times I pushed it. And then I noticed the minute hand wobble. I tried to ignore it as like, okay, maybe, it's fresh out of the box. Let's give it a couple days. I wore it. It's titanium, so it's super light. Titanium quartz. Lug to lug is big, but yeah, these should be big watches, right? So I didn't complain about that. I would never want, a 38 millimeter Aerospace. These are big boy pilot watches, and they should be large. But finally, after a few days of really wrestling with that bottom pusher, I just said, you know what? I spent too much money on this watch to put up with these issues on a brand new watch. So contacted my authorized dealer. And, I also included information from the Breitling Facebook groups I was on. A lot of these are being sent back to Breitling because of the issues. So my AD said, okay, I'm so sorry to hear that. Let me contact Breitling and see what they say. So she did. She get back to me and she said, yep, they'll take it back. No questions asked. They know there's some issues going on. So I sent it to her. She sent it to Breitling. Didn't hear anything until this past week. And I get an email saying that it had to go to Switzerland because of the issues they're having. And she feels so bad that she is actually willing to offer me a full refund on a watch I bought going on 3 months ago now. It's disappointing, really disappointing. But, I was like, I don't know how long it's going to take for me to get this watch back. I had it for 3 days. I didn't really get that much of an attachment to it. Maybe that scratches the itch. Then I look further down the email and she says, or you can put it towards a new watch if you've been looking at something. $5,000, right? So, all of a sudden I have $5,000 to play with. And I start looking at their lineup. They carry a lot of brands. And I came to the sad realization that in their lineup of brands and watches that they carry, $5,000 does not get you very far. Sure, I've been looking at the Breitling Super Ocean, the new one, but I don't know. It's more a watch I can admire from afar than maybe own. I don't need to own that one. And then what else is there? Everything else is $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 that I'd be interested in, like a Tag Skipper Carrera. And that's like $7,000. I have some other bills coming up too. I was out of work with a health ordeal here recently for a week and a half. I'm a one-man show with what I do. So if I don't work, I don't get paid. So I made the responsible and maybe not obvious decision for me. I took the refund. And all of this really got me thinking about the one glaring diminishing return. For me personally, anyway, you may not agree with this. The one glaring diminishing return for me with expensive luxury watches. They do nothing to quench my thirst for the next dopamine hit, the next watch. They do no more than a $100, $200, $300 watch. I'm very fortunate to own a Moser Endeavor that, for me anyway, is a very expensive, once-in-a-lifetime watch. We'll never probably be able to afford a watch that expensive again. I did it through consolidation. The moment I got that watch in, put it on my wrist, I'm sure I was online looking at the next one. What's next? What am I going to buy next? The same as I would do if I got a $50 G-Shock in, a $500 Seiko in, a $2,500 watch, so on and so forth. So as I'm looking at my authorized dealer's website on watches I could potentially spend this newfound $5,000 on, it hit me. It's like, I don't think my heart's in spending this much money right now. Now, it may change. I go through different mindsets when it comes to watch collecting every single day. When you think about it as much as I do and as much as we do, we're bound to change our minds 1,000 times about how we want to approach it. But right now, the thought of dropping that much new money on a watch that expensive, I don't know, it's unattractive to me right now. For a few reasons. I mean, the watch market is in tatters. We're hearing about it all the time. Secondary market prices are coming down. It's a great time to buy if you have the money. You want to go secondhand. There are some amazing deals out there to be had. I mean, even new watches, Hodinkee, they just announced that they are not going to sell watches anymore. They have a vast inventory. I don't know if you've been on their website this week, but huge sales going on. Not only brand new watches, but also pre-owned. I mean, that Mido GMT limited edition they released last year, I think it's almost $1,400. It's on sale for $820 right now. That's a great watch. You know, true GMT, if you will, comes with 3 straps, I think a bracelet and 2 straps. I mean, when it's on top or pre-owned, it's approaching $1,000. You can get it new for $800. That's crazy. So it's a great time to buy. It's a horrible, let me repeat, horrible time to sell. So I have slowed down buying and slowed down selling. Now that's a relative term. I think I've bought, 4 watches this year? We're almost at the end of August 2024. I've bought 4 watches this year. That's slowing down for me. For some people, that's a lot of watches. Some people only buy 1 or 2 watches a year. Maybe none a year, but they can still enjoy the hobby. 4 through 8 months, that's sadly pretty good for me, right? That's not a lot of watches. I've sold 1 watch that, you'd consider like a luxury watch. I did sell a G-Shock and a Moonswatch, but, I don't really count those. G-Shocks don't count in buying and selling. Case in point, bought an Hermes H08 this year, one of the 4 watches I bought. I always wanted to check one out. I really love the design. I love the numerals and how they sort of reverse order as you go around the dial. That's really cool. The large Cartier Santos just didn't really work on my wrist. It did, but I just felt it was a little big. This is a square watch, the Hermes, and it wore a little bit better than the Santos did, so I was excited. Titanium. Every watch I've bought this year is titanium also. So I guess I'm a titanium collector now. But, I soon realized once I got it in, I'm just not sure it's me. Not sure it's my vibe. I bought it on top or pre-owned for a really good price. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to sell it. It's just not where I want my collection to go. I'm trying to buy keepers these days, but, I missed on this one. This is not a keeper. So you live, you learn. Let's try and sell it. So I listed it for what I bought it for, which was around $3,000. And as Federico might say from Delray Watch and Federico Talks Watches, it was already at $3,000, the cheapest in the world. I could not find one cheaper. And I listed it in a few places, and crickets. If I did get a message, it was a tire kicker. What's your best price? How low are you willing to go? And I said, no, try finding one for less. and I'll match that, but you're not going to. So I'm staying firm. I quickly realized that was getting me nowhere, and it sat and it sat. And after a couple of weeks, I started to entertain the emails from the tire kickers, and I just couldn't make anything work. And I finally was able to move it. The person that bought it got a screaming deal, and I was rid of the watch. Selling is just not fun anymore. During the Gravy Train glory days of the uptick in the watch market, the COVID era, was a bad time for everybody else, but watches were booming. I mean, it would have been no problem to sell that watch. And now selling's just not fun. You're just inundated with people who want trades, who are really lowballing you with offers. And it's a great time to be a buyer, horrible time to be a seller. And that's something I consider. I am somebody who is prone to selling watches. I'm trying to buy keepers, but let's face it, not always the case. And if I don't like a watch, it's dead to me pretty fast. So all of this goes into, right now, I just don't know. I just don't feel like it's a good use of my money to drop more than a couple $1,000s on a watch. It's just not. I did pick up an affordable watch this year, and I got just as much enjoyment as I did buying the Aerospace, which I only had for 3 days, or the Hermes. And I wanted to buy the next one the same amount of time as I did when I bought my Moser, which is very expensive for me. So I think I'm going to hold tight. I don't plan on feeling this way forever. I got the $5,000 back in my bank account from the Aerospace, and I feel really good about that instead of putting it into a luxury watch. Now, I'm not somebody who thinks buying expensive watches is a huge diminishing return in general. I think there's a reason these watches cost more than their affordable counterparts. They're made better. They're finished better. Let's face it, there's some brand cachet and marketing that go into it as well. That's why Rolex is Rolex. And, maybe not to throw shade, but Oris is Oris. But the way these watches make me feel, and no matter what I buy, I'm still intent on researching and hunting for the next one. That, like I said, spending upwards of multi-thousands of dollars on a watch just makes no sense right now, and I'm just not going to do it for the time being, right? Famous last words. I'm never saying never, but for the time being, no way. So how do you feel about buying luxury watches right now? Are there deals out there that are just too good to pass up and you don't mind dropping the money because even if you decide to sell it, you're going to do okay because you bought it for such a great price? Let me tell you, from the Hermes experience, that's what I thought. I said, well, I'm buying this so cheap that I can't possibly be hurt when I go to sell it. I didn't wear it all that much, and I still lost money on it. Because when you're selling in the private sector, people just expect these rock bottom prices. So you have to keep up if you want to sell, and you have to be willing to lose your shirt in many cases. So the whole thing is just not that fun right now in terms of buying and selling, for me anyway. I know some people are loving the low prices and are buying. But that also is contingent on the watch market bouncing back. We don't know what's going to happen. I think brands realize there's a downturn in the market. You're seeing that with like Watches and Wonders, for instance, the lack of interesting and exciting releases and just less releases overall. Brands know it's a downtime. We don't know what's going to happen. COVID was unprecedented rise in interest and prices. And now there's still the interest, I think, but with the economy and the market the way it is, just uncertain times. I know for me anyway, I'm playing it safe. I'm just going to enjoy the watches I have. Maybe buy an affordable here and there to scratch the itch. But that's where I'm at for this year anyway, I think, and maybe going forward. So yes, please let me know. How do you feel? Are you willing to spend big money on watches right now, regardless of the economy and the watch market? Or are you being a little more conservative because if you have to sell the watches you buy right now, you're really not going to do well. You're better off just holding that money in the short term. Well, that's it. Quick hitter episode. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, going forward now, Watch Soup will be on Tuesdays, a Watchdog podcast on Fridays, and they'll all be under the Watchdog podcast banner now going forward. So happy to be back. Can't wait to engage with you every Friday. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you on the next episode of the Watch Dog podcast. See you later.